If you've ever watched any videos about Aphelios or played them yourself, you're probably somewhat familiar with this rotation. It's generally seen as a standard rotation and it's the one everybody keeps recommending. Now, I'm about to tell you something real crazy. It's bad. I've been using a different rotation for like 2 years that looks something like this. It's not very different, but this simple change is going to make an insane difference to how you play Aphelios. Let's get into it. First up, how do we even get to this rotation? Again, if you've ever played Aphelios, early game is not going to look that different to what you're usually doing. We start off the game with red-green. We get rid of red first. Then we get green-purple and we drop green to get purple-blue. Now, this is where things change. Instead of dropping purple first, as you would with the standard rotation, we drop blue first. This is what some people will probably scream at me and ask me, why would you do that? Purple-white is the worst combo. First off, it's worth it. Second of all, let's look at how we get rid of the weapons. When we get to blue-purple, the key is to use up your ammo about equally for both weapons. You don't want to use up all of Infernum and end up with purple-white with like 35 ammo left on Gravitum. If you manage your ammo correctly, you can get rid of blue and purple at about the same time so that you go straight into red-white. Real quick though, I know people love to hate on purple-white, but if you do manage your ammo correctly, it can actually be used as a great setup. You can route to engage, getting rid of Gravitum, and go straight into the fight with red-white. I try to do this a lot in my games because I feel it's sometimes actually stronger than fighting with red-white right away. Also, if your opponent sees you on purple-white, they might think you messed up and you can use that to bait them into a fight with you, only to whip out red-white and kill them. Anyway, once we're on red-white, we get rid of red again, just like with the standard rotation, and we have successfully acquired the blue-green rotation. Now, this is where things get fun. Once you get rid of Crescendum, you get the blue-green combo, the main reason why we want to use this rotation. But first, we have to understand what makes the synergy between these two so powerful. The key lies within Infernum Q's interaction with Calibrum. As we know, when you hit an enemy champion with Infernum Q, they get attacked with your offhand weapon right after. Most players are used to seeing this interaction with Gravitum, Crescendum, or Severum when they use the standard rotation. However, with Calibrum, there's a bit more to it. When you hit an enemy with Infernum Q, they get attacked with Calibrum from your offhand. On top of that, because of how Calibrum works when it is used as your offhand, it also leaves a mark that Aphelios can proc to auto the enemy again. So that means Aphelios can use a simple and instantaneous combo such as auto attack into Infernum Q to deal 4 instances of damage from a single ability. Let's compare this to what the standard rotation would look like at this point. If we had Gravitum instead of Infernum right now, we could use auto attack into Gravitum Q, into Calibrum Q, and mark proc. Not bad. The thing is that in this case, we already had to use both weapons' abilities. If you look back at the blue-green rotation, if we use Infernum Q like mentioned, it does everything the other two weapons do combined, and we still have an entire other ability to play around. But it gets better. Because of how Calibrum interacts as an offhand, it takes a certain amount of time for the offhand auto-attack projectile to fly in the air to reach its target. Now this gets a bit complicated here, but bear with me. During that window, Aphelios' actual auto attack cooldown has already reset from when you autoed before Infernum Q. It is possible during this window to squeeze in another auto attack onto the enemy while the Calibrum offhand auto attack is still flying through the air to its target. What that means essentially is that Aphelios is able to auto attack twice at the same time when this interaction is happening. That would be 5 instances of damage while playing around 1 ability. Obviously, this doesn't happen every time you use Infernum Q with Calibrum. There are 2 somewhat correlated factors. The simple one is this: you need enough attack speed. You don't need a vast amount, but from my experience, if the second requirement, which I'll get into in a sec, isn't met, you need at least Berserker Greaves, Kraken Slayer, or Stormrazor, and some points in your W. The reason why there's no fixed amount you need is because of the second factor, the distance between you and your target enemy. When you use Infernum Q on an enemy, they can do one of 3 things. They can stay exactly where they are, they can get closer to you, or they can get further away from you. So let's look at case number 1. If they stay exactly where they are, all it comes down to is your attack speed. Simple. If they get closer to you, you will most likely never be able to squeeze the 5th auto attack into the combo. That is because when the enemy is coming closer to you, it results in the Calibrum offhand auto attack having a shorter air time between you and your target, so it will hit before your attack speed timer is reset. You would need like insane amounts of attack speed here to be able to proc the 5th auto. It's just very unlikely. Now, for the most interesting case, when the enemy is moving away from you after you landed your Infernum Q, everything becomes a little wonky. This is where you're most likely to be able to squeeze in the 5th auto attack while the Calibrum offhand auto attack is still flying through the air, because the distance between you and the enemy is obviously getting larger. The reason why this can be a bit weird is because if the enemy has enough movement speed or your attack speed is too low, they can sometimes move far enough away to the point you can't reach them at all. This can be helped though by swapping to Calibrum right after Infernum Q for the extra bit of range to potentially squeeze in the 5th auto while they're moving away. Okay, that's a lot, but there's still more. Let's look at some other advantages blue-green has over green-purple. We already covered that in order for green-purple to do this kind of damage, we would need to use both of our abilities. But even then, while using them, you're stuck in a bunch of awkward animations where you can't move and are quite vulnerable to all sorts of things. With the blue-green rotation, even though there are obviously still wind-ups and animations, they're much smoother and easier to play around, making it a lot safer to use. In my opinion, Kraken Slayer is one of, if not the best items of the game for FL anyway, but I'm not going to get into that on top of all else right now. What's important is that with blue-green, Kraken can be fully procced with just one use of the combo we went over, compared to how it works with the more awkward green-purple combo. Next, using Infernum Q on someone while they're in a creep wave actually ends up empowering the combo even more because of Calibrum as an offhand. All the creeps will get marked, resulting in all those marks causing even more damage on your main target once you proc it. Infernum Q can also be used on targets you don't have or lose vision on, like in bushes or people flashing over walls to escape, allowing you to finish them off when they thought they could escape. Also, in case you're sad about losing your long range route, you can still get it as long as you have less than 10 ammo on Calibrum. When you Q with Calibrum, you can then choose which weapon to be your offhand, and if you swap correctly, you can still get the long range route if Gravitum is your offhand. Again, I can't stress this enough, the instantaneousness of this combo is insane. I've gotten countless kills because people thought they were safe at like 40 to 50% HP, only to get hit by a basically undodgeable Infernum Q followed up with all this damage. There's probably even more stuff I'm forgetting right now, but I think you get the point. The combo is kind of broken. Alright, I promise from now on everything will be a lot less complicated and super easy to follow. Once you get rid of Calibrum and Infernum right after, you end up with purple red. This combo, from what I've seen, receives a lot of hate and people seem to think it's kind of weak and has no synergy at all. And honestly, I don't really get it. Early to mid game, it's actually a great combo. I think the reason why people dislike it is because you end up missing out on red-blue, which is one of FL's more iconic combos. But to be honest, especially early on, that combo is kind of weak. Ever since Riot nerfed the healing interaction between Infernum and Severum as an offhand, the argument that queuing a wave with Infernum to gain large amounts of HP back, for example, is not really valid anymore either. Even though it's not the main reason why you want to run this rotation, red-purple is still a good tool for early game fights and skirmishes. I remember several fights versus bruisers that were basically not even allowed to touch me, because if you're spacing well with this combo, nobody's allowed to come close to you with Severum Q applying Gravitum slow over and over, on top of Gravitum having another route. Plus, if they do, you still have Severum ult to turn things around and Gravitum to stop them from getting away. Like, I'll admit, the combo did take some time to get used to, but eventually it grew on me. Here's the issue. Eventually, once you get a couple of items, red and blue actually becomes a pretty strong team fighting tool, with Severum Q dealing insane amounts of damage and Infernum autos just melting through teams. And yes, with this rotation, you don't really have access to this combo. So here's the secret. You swap. You don't want to keep this rotation the entire game. We went over the insane amount of undodgeable bursts that blue-green offers early to late mid-game. However, that burst becomes less and less powerful the longer the game goes on, and teamfights require a lot more DPSing. Don't get me wrong, if you're playing against a team with 5 marksmen and mages, blue-green will be a stronger tool for a longer time in that game. However, when you're versus 2 bruisers and 2 tanks, they're not going to care much for the burst you can put out with blue-green later on in the game. At some point, once you have a few items, red-blue is going to be able to do the same or even more damage as blue-green. It just takes a while to scale. Severum, especially, is not only an essential teamfighting weapon later on because of its interaction with Crescendum or Infernum, but because its active ability, if you use it well, can delete an entire champion by itself. So yes, at some point in the game, blue-green is going to fall off compared to other combos a Fel's kit can provide. At that point, when you get to blue-green and drop the ladder, instead of dropping Infernum next, you hold on to it, and then drop Gravitum. Then you're back at the standard rotation. At this point in the game, since your two weakest teamfighting tools are Calibrum and Gravitum, I try to get rid of both of them as fast as possible once I get them, and pretty much only play around Infernum, Severum, and Crescendum, depending on the combat situation. Of course, there's situations where you can play around white-green, however, if it doesn't pay off, you're going to be stuck on green-purple right after, which can potentially lose you the game. So just be wary of that. I know people love white-green, and it is an incredibly powerful combo in late game, especially for Baron and Drake taking, but once people know how to play around your sentries in higher elo, and they're not picking a fight where they have to come into you, it can be a bit of a hit or miss combo, while Severum, Infernum, or Crescendum are a lot more reliable and flexible in that regard. Alright, that's about it. I hope this helps with understanding why I think the blue-green rotation is so much better than the standard rotation, and hopefully shed some light on what actually makes it so powerful. If you have any questions left, go ahead and leave a comment down below, or maybe check me out on Twitch, where I stream almost sometimes. Life is hard, okay? Anyway, like and subscribe if you enjoyed, I would appreciate it a lot, and good luck on your climb. Bye!